This is the UnDisrupted podcast coming to you live virtually from everywhere across the United States. And Adam, let me ask you this. So, live streaming classrooms has been like the big thing now, right? Like we got to figure out a way to make the actual classroom look physically and virtually the same way as it would do on a computer. I'm sure nothing wrong would go with that, right? So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on live streaming in classrooms?
Now, Carl,
yes.
I'm going to tell you, there's so many things that could go wrong with live streaming classrooms, but yet there's so many things that could go right. I mean, for example, a kid now is socially connected to what's going on in the classroom, but also a parent can see every little thing that little Johnny is doing in the back of the classroom in real time that the teacher could possibly not see. I mean, those are those things that could go wrong, but who am I to judge? We have 1,500 cameras in my classrooms in my district, so
Yeah. You might speak from experience. Of course, as you're saying that, I'm immediately thinking of like the alphabet soup of FERPA, SIPA, COPA, LS, the COPA compliant, Copacabana, whatever, that we're going to have to worry about too when it comes to actually peeking into those classrooms. Well, we're excited today to be joined by Andrew Wallace. He's the Director of Technology in South Portland Maine Schools. And Andy, what's your thought on that kind of debate, the idea of live streaming in classrooms?
Well, I've got some more of a technical concern and a pedagogical concern with that. Like, live streaming in a classroom, focusing on the teacher, is that really what we want to be doing? I mean, are we reinforcing a lecture style classroom environment? You got to have multiple cameras. You got to have some of those fancy 360 cameras that they have in Adam Files district. Yeah. But more importantly, how do you get the focus on the students as well? Because often the students are the ones providing so much of the teaching when it's interactive and when kids are really, really, when we're together in the classrooms, I want to make the most of this. I want it to be as interactive as possible, going as deep as possible. And the last thing I want to see happening in our classrooms in the precious time we have in front of our kids is focusing on the teacher in the front of the room. So scrap it right there.
Andrew Wallace dropping some deep knowledge right off the bat. By the way, you can follow Andy on Twitter at Andrew T. Wallace. The T stands for Tiberius. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Just like James T. Kirk.
Yeah, very good. So we always start off, of course, with a serious question. And this is because you come to us from Maine, so I thought I would ask this question. Is the lobster really that good in Maine?
It's actually really strange. This is line in the Atlantic Ocean between New Hampshire and Maine. And everything 3 to 4 inches south of that line is garbage.
Dropping truth again.
Have you ever seen a lobster on a New Hampshire license plate? I don't think so.
See, I know I was watching Kitchen Nightmares and Ramsey was going off on this guy about the lobster. He said they were like Maine lobsters, but they were like really from Canada. And he was like, it's not the same.
Yeah, actually, little known fact, if you look it up, as recently as I believe in the early 1920s or so, there was a border dispute between Maine and New Hampshire, and it was about lobster and fishing rights. And it got pretty testy. Like, we're talking potential civil incursion, it was pretty intense for a while. So look that up. Little known fact is about this tiny strip of water with a couple little islands. And it really was about who had the right to take the lobster out of there.
It's crazy to think that people would fight about silly things, right? And imagine if there was social media around then, what it would be like. I can only imagine all the hashtags that would come out of that. Adam, you want to kick them off?
All right, so let's kind of, talk about in your position and dealing with students, teachers, parents, everything going on in the world today. What is that one thing that keeps you up at night that, if this happens, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to shave my beard if this happens. What's that thing?
That'd be pretty serious for Andrew.
No, right. This hasn't been off. My children have never seen the face beneath this. So that would be pretty jarring. So
their chin, yes.
Serious question. I don't know. I mean, what's keeping me up at night, honestly, is about how we're going to fluidly move between different stages of schooling. So are we going to be fully open as if nothing had happened? Unlikely. Are we going to be completely closed in a sort of a red zone where everyone's learning from home? Or are we going to be in a sort of hybrid, what we're calling the yellow zone? It literally is what is consuming almost all of my thoughts over the past, say, month or so. We need to find a way that we can adjust to things that we can't foresee. And for me, as the person who has to get devices out into the hands of families and supporting families and kids, and also helping teachers learn about and teaching in this new sort of model, that's really what's keeping me up at night, wondering where are we going to be and trying to plan for all the eventualities so that we can move seamlessly between those sort of conditions. Also thinking about how can we develop technology and learning so that kids can fluidly move in and out of these systems too, right? So never before have we needed to align what we teach closer, because we might have a kid for 14 days out for precautionary reasons. And how do we get them back in the classroom? And maybe they have to be out for a few more days, and how do we get them out and keeping that learning going? So that's the sort of stuff I think about, and just the scheduling of all that is really challenging. I know a lot of our administrators are in literally right now working on different possible schedules. So that's really been our focus. It's really the only thing I've been thinking about, to be honest with you.
I like that the nomenclature used about the yellow zone and kind of that mix of what that's going to look like. So they're meeting right now, and I know this is being recorded in July, but what is it looking like? What is the outcome? What in your district or schools around you, what are you seeing as like the model that people are kind of leaning on going forward, at least at this kind of uncertain fall?
I think people are trying to come up with like the right size classroom, right? The right size cohort of students, and who travels together and who learns together. How do we provide other learning opportunities to them, like in the form of maybe art class or phys ed or things like that? So we don't have an official plan yet. We have a community stakeholder group working. We met once, and we're going to meet again next week. But for some districts, in my own children's district, they're going to a model with only, I think, 5 different grades are actually going to school, and the rest are staying home. And even those who are going to school are only going a few days a week, so that the teachers could, we're not going to grow 100% more teachers in a year.
Yeah.
And we're certainly not going to be able to hire people for an indeterminate amount of time, because this yellow zone might be a week, it might be 12 months. We don't really know what it's going to be, but you can't really plan for that. So what we're looking at, and many schools are looking at, is maybe cutting class sizes in half and then having kids come on alternating days. So kids might come a couple days a week, and then they stay with their group pretty tight in the classroom. They don't commingle with other cohorts, and then that's kind of what the thinking is in many districts. You hear that snap? I usually
that's the dad snap. Is that the dad snap? If I've ever heard one, it's like in mid conversation, he just busts out the dad snap. I saw that too. I was like, that is classic. I was about to ask you, I was like, man, is there something going? Is there construction happening in your room there?
But for me though, on the tech side, right, I'm thinking about, what do? How do I both have devices in the classroom and at home, right? And so right now I'm leaning towards leaving the devices at home, where the kids can then sort of, parents are great and they've done a remarkable job, but it's not fair to ask them to be full-time teachers. And so we need to leverage tools like, math instruction, high quality math instruction, ELA instruction, and serve some of that up. And I think the technology is best served at home. Think of it in that flipped classroom model, right? Where the time of the teacher is going to be so precious, because I'm afraid it's going to be so limited, that you're really going to want to go deep when you're with your kids, right?
Right.
And all that lecture-based stuff, all the video stuff, that can all be front-loaded for the at-home time. Give the parents a little bit of sanity, and give the kids an opportunity to work with the technology in a focused way. So, there's no reason why they couldn't do math every day or reading every day. And then we've invested in what I consider to be really good tools that can, gauge the student's progress and are adaptable, right? Because you don't have that teacher there all the time to make that
right
adaptation that you need.
Yeah.
So let me kind of ask you this, because you hit on a few things, whether it's home learning, remote learning, blended learning, flipped classroom. In our role, your role specifically, like, how do you see yourself supporting families and students in this space? And if I can even say teachers, because you're going to have some teachers that may have to go home for a 14-day period or longer, but they still want to support their classroom. So how do you see yourself supporting those folks without physically being in your buildings?
Right. So one of the, on March 13th, we gained, 5,600 new people to support, right? Those are those parents.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And, but yet we looked at the staffing that we had, and some of the roles that we had in my team, some of the more troubleshooting folks or people going in and co-teaching with teachers, they had a little bit of flexibility, right? Because they weren't running around the classrooms. They weren't setting up AV. They weren't being there at that in-person support. So one of the first things we did was we identified some of our key apps and key tools. So for us, one of them was Seesaw, right? And another one would be Google Classroom. So what we realized, though, is parents had never used some of these, even though we had had these in place for a while. So we set up a phone line that just for parents, right? So the parents would call in. We find that supporting parents via phone is much more efficacious than email. And so the parents would call, and it was a dedicated line, and it went to these 2 employees, and that's all they did for multiple weeks.
Wow.
Is they fielded calls from parents, and they helped parents get kids set up. Because at the time, parents, some parents were using, this. Other parents were using laptops. Others were using iPads or Chromebooks or even Kindles, right? So what we did was we really just focused in on supporting the few apps that we felt were the gateway to connect with families. So we shrunk our focus to Seesaw and Google Classroom and really asked our teachers just to use that. That's how you maintain your connection with your families. Now, after you establish that connection, you can layer on other tools that we also support. But we wanted everything to be funneled through these 2 particular resources because we found them to be very approachable and what we could support as a district.
And you brought up a good point there with the phone system, because I know email's easy for us. I mean, it's easy,
Sure.
meaning I can set up an email account and say, hey, email to tech support and wash my hands of it. But I know how I am. I want to talk to a person. At this point, I'm like, okay, just pick up the phone. I know, and let me just tell you my problem. I don't want to type it out. So I think that probably works well for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I've seen a trend, and I don't know if this is not just in education, but I think in all industries, that customer service in the last few months has really been lacking. There's not. I mean, we've been trying to get something fixed at our house for a while, and I don't know how many calls. It's not been 3 or 4 weeks where we keep calling them back, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll get somebody out there. We'll talk to you." And they're like, "Well, it's COVID." That's like that's the easy excuse. You just throw that. Well, I broke a dish. I looked at my kid. I was like, "What was?" She's like, "Maybe my daughter even said it's COVID. That's why I broke it." I was like, "No, stop. You can't blame it all on that." So I do like that. That's got to be tricky too, to have those people supported. I mean, you have to have technicians that also have like a customer service background or customer service. Do you train them? Do you talk to them at all about that? Or
I'm really lucky that all my team are people.
People.
Those
People.
they're really good. But you're right, though. It does take a certain sort of type of person to have that patience, and also to flip between the different types of audience that you're supporting. So, the 2 people I chose are very approachable, very patient, very good at explaining things, right? But the questions weren't terribly technical, right? But now, oh my gosh, we've got all these like you said, all these teachers at home with their devices, and we've got all sorts of problems, and they want us to help troubleshoot. And that is so difficult to do remote. So what we did for our teachers was we would do more like a drop-in, like Google Hangouts. So you want tech support, you could drop in that way.
Yeah.
But even that wasn't quite cutting it, right? Because sometimes the problem was a video problem. How are you going to do a video chat? So in the end, what we decided to do was something radically different. And we also realized that we were spending way too much time interfacing with the public and as well with our colleagues who are out in the public. And we realized that from a health standpoint, that wasn't a great idea. So what we implemented was a locker system whereby, just remember back before the world was different, the last thing that changed the world, 9/11, when you used to be able to go to a city and you could leave your luggage in the airport in a locker and you can go explore a city and go back, things like that, or in a bus station. Well, we had a bunch of old lockers from a shop class that, wasn't running anymore. And we would put Chromebooks and iPads and Wi-Fi hotspots in those lockers, put a padlock on them, and then rather than interface with people, we would say, we're not going to fix your Chromebook. We're going to give you a different one. We're not even going to try to fix it. So bring it in. Here's the combination. Put it in. Take the one that we left in there for you, and then we'll call it good. Now, that wasn't universally popular, but in a way, it actually had a nice impact in that people have become very responsible for backing up their data. And, from an operational standpoint, I can do away with file servers and backups and things that are really expensive. And then you don't have to worry about that as much. People are using the cloud much more effectively. And there's not that trepidation, that trepidation you can have with some staff members when you get them a new device. They don't want the new device. They'd rather work with that busted device and have you
Yeah.
fix it 17 times because they can't, they're not sure. Did you get those pictures from the last, talent show off there? Am I going to lose my files? So to me, this was as a side benefit is we really, just because it's not safe to try to work with someone one-on-one to fix a problem anymore. So we're just swapping things out, and it's been much more efficient. It's something, when you think about what are some of the things you're going to carry forth when we resume normal, I think this is one of those things we're going to carry forth. And from another standpoint, when you think about it, not all families work when we work. They're working third shift, or they can't just get over between the hours when we're open. So if you do this locker system, which are mounted outside under camera and undercover for the elements, and trust me, we have elements here in Maine.
Yes, you do.
And they can just come and get them when they want. So it's a self-service sort of solution, and so far it's worked really well.
So you've gotten pretty positive feedback on the system itself. Do you have anything you've learned since you've implemented it? Is there something I wish I would have done this differently, or since the beginning of it, or is it just run pretty flawlessly? Yeah, what I've learned is that only middle schoolers know how to use a master lock. Wow. There's a generational gap when it comes to master lock. Now when we send out the link, I actually made a video of me opening turning it left, right, left. I put my that GoPro on my head. Yeah. And I'm telling you, it was not a one-take video. Okay, I promise. I look smooth, but it was not a one-take video. Because of course, the first time it doesn't quite pull open, you're like, I got to reshoot the whole thing again. Exactly.
Yeah, you got to spin it like 5 times or something, because it's like, okay, that's the magical number. Now I got to spin it first before I put in the number.
Exactly. Now I would say one thing though. We happen to be we're a city, and we're very tight, density. We're the most densely populated city in the state. But this might not work as well in a more rural place. Okay. But think about going to Whole Foods or out to the mall, and now Amazon is putting these lockers in different places, right? Yep. So a colleague of ours, Kyle Berger, out of right outside of Dallas. Yep. Anyway, he is putting them actually in grocery stores. So he's doing something similar, but he's putting them in places where, when people go out, they're going to go to the grocery store, they could actually swap out a device at the grocery store.
That's good, because I've seen some solutions like that from some vendors. But, once again, with everybody being tight on budget, you're talking about some Wi-Fi enabled storage lockers. It can get kind of pricey, to get something that you can manage via the cloud. So having a quote unquote old school solution to a new age problem definitely can benefit a district.
Yeah. And pro tip, don't buy master locks, buy those alphabetical ones too. Oh, okay. Because those have been much more effective. Yeah, we just need to get all those breakout EDU kits from Adam Bello and just start using all those locks. And then you make it a learning challenge. You want to get you want your Chromebook today. You just have to solve these 6 prompts, and you learn while you're actually getting your device out of the locker.
I like it.
New breakout. We did as well, and we continue to do is because not everybody can get to this location. Is leverage the tools you've got. So your transportation office, those people, they know. I've now learned pretty much every road in the city, because at first we were delivering out to families, but they're out there, they have a dispatch, they know all the families' phone numbers. They can call ahead and say, when you see the little mini school bus coming down your street, I'm just some weirdo driving around in my little Ford handing out computers. Right. A school bus, people are more likely to come out and meet the school bus or wave to the school bus as you drop off the device from a safe distance.
Yeah, you're like the ice cream man.
Yeah.
You just need to have some music playing. The Chromebook man is coming.
Yay. I could see it already.
So with this environment that we're in now, and I'm not even gonna say post-COVID, because we're still going through this. Listen, some people, it could be still the first wave. We haven't even hit the second wave yet, or we could be in the second wave of the pandemic. What are some words that you have that you could give to someone out there? We're trying to end each podcast with some words of encouragement. So for anybody listening, those who have subscribed and hit the like button, what can you give them to just motivate them to keep going?
I would just say that it just matters so much, that when we think about the experiences our kids have in life, one of the, we talk a lot about equity, and for many families, many kids rather, not families, many kids, the only equitable thing is that place called school, right? Where they go and they can feel safe. And, we've got kids that, they might have internet at home, but they don't have a great relationship with their family, or it's not a great place to learn, right? Or they have 7 siblings, or they're alone, right? That's another one. They're isolated. And so, for the teachers, just keep connecting with kids, do that extra check-in whenever you can, because it matters so much to so many kids to be connected. And the other one is just let them be social, open up your chat rooms. Don't be afraid that they're going to use your Google Hangout to hang out, because that's what kids are supposed to do. They're supposed to hang out. So let them be kids, that's what I would say. And don't be afraid of the ramifications of kids using social media, because this is where they're going to stay connected in the interim until they can reconnect in real life.
So speaking of that connection, Andy, where can our listeners find you and find more information about you and your work?
Sure. So you could go to www.spsd.org, or even better, libraries.spsd.org. Our infotech team, which is librarians and educational technologists, they are amazing, and they have so many resources up there, libguides on all sorts of topics that are available to anyone in the public. So our library team, our infotech team is fantastic. So libraries.spsd.org, tons of great resources there. And if you're on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at Andrew T. Wallace. I'd love to connect with people in your audience.
All right, Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
This was the UnDisrupted podcast. He's Adam.
And he's Carl. Remember, we are better together.
And we are better
UnDisrupted.
This podcast is made possible by the generous support of Amazon Web Services.